Hi there. Today I'm going to share with you three of my favorite apps that I use in my classroom. The first one is Front Row, and what Front Row is differentiated math instruction that is Common Core aligned for grades K through 8, and it's available to use on both the iPad and on a desktop or laptop computer. Front Row is awesome. I'm going to show you an example of what the student is. The nice thing about Front Row is that it's free and it is applicable to all students. So being a resource room teacher, many of my students are at different grade levels. So the nice thing about Front Row is that the students start by taking a practice test, and it places them where they're at, and it kind of lets you know their strengths and weaknesses. So you can sign up completely free. You can put your entire class in. The students will get a username and password, which is just usually their first and last name, and then you'll get a class code. And you can write that somewhere. You can put it in your newsletter. You can have it on your board. So each student will go and it'll tell how far they've got, and they can kind of compete with other students in your class. It's been really fun. So they have the option to have it read aloud, which is great for my English language learners. There is room to do work. They can kind of solve the problem on their own. It gives them some examples, or pictures if they need it. It's just a really great program. And again, it's free. So a couple other wonderful things about Front Row is that you can get report cards, which tell you exactly where each student is at. When you click on sessions, it will help you to see how often your students are on it. Groups and matrix will tell you what are the targeted strands that the students have worked on. And probably the best part of it for me as a resource teacher is not only is it Common Core aligned, but when students are struggling, the nice thing is I can look at what they're doing and I can generate a PDF that will give me work to send home with them. So this is, say a student needs, this is the standard, and this is the area that the student's struggling in. It generates work for them, more practice work, which is amazing and in and of itself. My district uses Engage New York, and as much as that program is great for our students, we have had to supplement with a lot of additional, like old Harcourt material, or not Harcourt, excuse me, um, Houghton Mifflin, a couple different math programs that we've had. So it's been a little bit challenging. So this in and of itself has been wonderful to have. The next program or app that I'm going to share that I use religiously is also another math program, and it's called IXL. IXL is another, it's Common Core aligned, so every time you open it, it has a strand, it has um, the individual module, whatnot, of what the student is working on or what areas they need to work on. And you enter your roster. So I have my students in here. And this one is very similar to Front Row. It sends you weekly reports, or you can print your own report of what the student has been doing. Now, again, this is just supplemental, but this tells me exactly how many questions the student answered, what areas they worked on. As you can tell, we just started using it in October. The progress my students have made and the amount of time. So this is something they can also use at home, and many of my students don't take advantage of that, but for your students that do, it's wonderful. The only problem with IXL is it is not free. You can do a 30-day trial, but for a classroom teacher, it's pretty inexpensive, and also it lets you do a language arts trial as well. So when I purchased this, it was just originally for math, but it's been so helpful for so many of my students. So if you click on, you go to second grade skills, and it lists all of the content standards. So is this student, and up until I think first grade, it is eligible to be read aloud. But other than that, that's the hard part with some of my special education students, is that they can't read it. So primarily I just use it for math. So, and again, you pick your answer. It tells you how long. And the nice thing too about this as a teacher is that if I have students using this on iPads and or the computer, I can go over and I can see how many problems they've done, how many minutes they've been working on, and what's their accuracy down here. And the students love, after they get about 5 to 10 problems right in a subject area, it gives them a little ribbon, and so they know if they're doing well or not. Um, but again, something I use regularly in my classroom with students. I send it home with them just because it is so helpful. It's great practice. So looking at all of the grade levels, since I work with kindergarten through fifth grade, it is, I think I pay about under $50 a year for it. I want to say it's maybe $30 for a year for up to 30 students in a classroom. And then there's rights and license. You'll have to look into it, but it's definitely beneficial. So both IXL and Front Row, two of my favorite for math. The third app that I use regularly in my classroom is Doceri. So this is something I can only use. I use it just on my iPad. So it is, as you can tell, it says Doceri is a professional iPad interactive whiteboard and screencast recorder with sophisticated tools for hand-drawn graphics and built-in remote desktop controls. So this is wonderful for when I'm working from my iPad and I'm want the students to be working the same thing. So it's kind of serves as like reflector when you use Doceri. So I can project my iPad to the projector screen and the students can see what I'm doing and we can work on problems together. And it's great for writing, it's great for math, it's great for science, it's great for anything really that we're doing, just because it's so interactive. It's having a whiteboard right there, and on top of it, as much as students love the whiteboards, having an iPad in their hand is much more beneficial. Now, I don't have one-to-one devices, but I do have about 10 classroom iPads or iPad minis that I use, which is, for me, most of my groups are no more than like maybe 15 kids. So definitely 3 apps worth checking out. Front Row is free. Doceri is, there's one part of it is free for the iPad. And if you want to use it for the Windows and desktop too, it's a very small fee. It's like for a year, I think $20 or $30, and they give you training. And for anyone that uses iPads or technology in the classroom, it's definitely something I would recommend. IXL is always my go-to just because it's inexpensive. It's easy for the kids to log on. And I mean, same thing with Front Row. Just as much Common Core math practice as they can get, I like to give them. So I hope you consider one of these 3 apps to use in your classroom.